The Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next on the agenda is roll call. Clerk Newbeck here, Treasurer Brown,
Here.
Trustee Morocco,
Here.
Trustee Ritchie,
Here.
Trustee Stoyan,
Here.
and Supervisor Aliaga and Trustee Nalamothu are absent this evening. I'd like to make a motion to appoint Trustee Ritchie as acting chair for the January 24th, 2023 meeting.
Second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried.
All right, guess we'll move on then. Next thing on the agenda is approval of the agenda. Does anybody have any additions or anything you want to?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
I'll second.
Motion is made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Agenda is approved as presented. Now we'll move on to board announcements. Anybody on the board have an announcement to make? Anything? Anybody in the public have an announcement about information about a recent or upcoming event?
Yeah, I just have Derek Smith, Independence Township Parks, Recreation, and Seniors Director. I just wanted to give kudos to one of my staff members who, before the holidays, had written a grant to through Oakland County, the Healthy Aging Oakland County Ad Hoc Committee. And she received a letter on January 17th. Pleased to inform you that upon recommendation from the Healthy Aging Oakland County Ad Hoc Committee, that the Independence Township Senior Center's application has been approved in the amount of $231,458.38. So now that I got the dollar amount right, she had written this grant to, we have some improvements we need to do at the senior center. We have $40,000 in our capital improvement plan. She can match those funds with these, so she now has $80,000 to be able to make those improvements at the senior center. The other almost $200,000 was written to make infrastructure improvements over at Brady Lodge. The Aging Ad Hoc Committee had recognized Brady Lodge as an opportunity for us to be able to program that facility for our senior population. So kudos to Jennifer for writing the grant, and congratulations to us for getting another $231,000 towards our capital improvement projects.
Wonderful
So good for
news.
Jennifer.
Very
Good
good.
job.
Thank you, Jen.
Thank you. Anyone else have a public announcement? Anyone online? Seeing no one, we'll move on to public comment. Anybody want to address the board on items that are not on tonight's agenda?
Yes, I would.
All right, go ahead.
Just a little thing, in reviewing the check run for the one you're gonna approve today, Department 265, had 2 line items for the hall for, maintenance of the lawn in October and November. And I was just kind of wondering what kind of maintenance they do in October and November, and why it is being outsourced to another company instead of having the township employees take care of it with all their equipment and stuff. So I just kind of wondering them 2 things.
All right,
What was the name? What was the name of the payment?
it was,
Green Acres Landscape for building maintenance for the Township Hall. And it was $240 in November, and it was $600 in October. So, you know, that's kind of late in the season. I was just wondering.
I think we can
What
get an
would-
answer for you. I think we can have an answer right now.
Sure, but shouldn't that be not outsourced to another company?
He's going to answer that right now for you.
Yeah,
Sure.
I'm pretty sure that's winter fertilization that we have for the lawn, through, Absolute Green, was it, you said? I think that's-
No,
Green-
it was
or
Green
green.
Meadow.
Green
Okay.
Meadow.
Yeah, I think that was winter fertilization for the lawns for town hall, probably safety pads.
Could you hear that okay?
Yeah,
We
sure.
do contract that out. That's just not, it's not a really good resource at time. We get a great deal on them. And it's not only that they do town hall, but they do the Sashball corridor, they do the cemetery, so they do a lot of the properties.
Good question.
Great, great. Okay, thank you. Thank you for answering that.
No
You bet.
problem.
Thanks, Dave.
Anyone else have any comments online? All right, seeing none, we'll go to the next item. Next item on the agenda is public hearings. We have none tonight. Presentations and reports is the next item, item H. I don't think we have anything for that tonight either. So we'll go down to the consent agenda. There's 4 items on the consent agenda tonight. Number 1 is approve the Board of Trustees regular meeting minutes of January 10th, 2023. Number 2 is request to approve the January 17th, 2023 check run of $455,332.33 and ratify the January 6th, 2023 payroll of $313,422.15 and ratify the 2022 external wire EFT ACH transfer activity of November and December for $274,906.97 and $4,235,864.15 respectively. Item number 3 is a request to approve the 23 budget amendment number 2 for emergency laptop replacement for the assessing director. And number 4 is request to approve out-of-state travel for Great Lakes Parks Institute in Angola, Indiana, for the Parks and Rec Department for two employees of the Parks and Rec Department. That's the consent agenda. To have anybody that would like to approve it or as is or amend it?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the consent agenda as presented. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Consent agenda is approved.
Can I just make a quick comment on that?
Sure.
On the travel thing, Derek, I mean, I'm an advocate for people going out and getting continual education. I think that's good. I think that the townships actually cut back on some of that in some of the departments, but I did go through your stuff, and I think it's, the prices were, and the stipends and everything were, I mean, super low and very reasonable, and it stood out that these two guys traveling are doing it on a very tight budget, you know, and obviously conscious of the cost.
Appreciate that. And last year, Larry Hess, our park superintendent, was the chair of this conference, so he had the entire conference paid for last year for his attendance. So, but thank you for that. It's something that they've been doing every year and always bring good ideas and better ways to do our business here. So it's a great opportunity for them to continue to learn. So, thank you.
I know Larry came to me after he got back the last time, and he was very appreciative that he got to go, just because of the interaction. He said the face-to-face interaction and, you know, just the conversations you have with everybody gave him a lot of enthusiasm and ideas to bring back as well. So he said a lot of things you don't get in like a Teams type meeting or whatever. So.
All right.
Okay, we'll move on to L, regular business. First on the agenda tonight is a request to approve the 2023 budget amendment number 3 for the Sashball Regional Drain. And Mr. McKee.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
So tonight is the, before you tonight is to get some, let me make sure I get my paperwork correct here. There we go. So I'm looking for you to receive board approval tonight for an investigation and looking into the Sashball Regional Drain and the waters that flow into the Sashball Regional Drain north of I-75. So just a little background, the Sashball Regional Drain was built approximately 17 years ago, and it runs from north of the town hall here, comes through the middle Town Hall parking lot, into the lake back here, and meanders southward, and eventually it ends up in Spring Lake. I guess we're still calling it Spring Lake. So that's all part of the regional drain that was when it was built, and the purpose of it was for commercial businesses along the Sashball corridor when they wouldn't have to build on-site retainage or retention for storm water. So as we look for development moving forward, on the north side of I-75, there is a large pipe that does run underneath I-75 from there into the regional drain. It does contribute to the headwaters of the regional drain. So this study that we'd asked Nowak and Frost to give us a quote on is to determine what kind of flows we can expect to come out of there, and if there is any negative impact on the whole system as a whole, because we don't want to have a whole bunch coming from up north, affecting people on the south. So with the data that we have, the stormwater, let me back up, the stormwater standards have changed. So Oakland County changed the stormwater standards, I believe it was in May of 2021. Mr. Ottman was here and brought it to the board's for attention for approval. So now you have to prepare for a 100-year storm instead of, I believe it was back-to-back 10-year storms. Is that correct, Brian? I believe so. Okay. So they did change the standard on that. So what I'm looking to do is on this maintenance piece here really is to just get better data based on the new standards that we have. Inevitably, we're going to have development moving on the north side of 75. It's going to impact the drain. There's a pipe that goes there. It comes into the drain. We want to make sure that everything north, we have good data and good recommendations to developers to the north on what they may and may not have to do when they develop their parcels. They may have to put in retention. They may have to put in detention, slow things down, or just hold it there. So since the drain was built in '06, approximately '06 to '08, a lot has changed. Those of you who've lived in this community way longer than I've been here understand that the Sashball corridor has changed dramatically since then. A lot of new development, a lot of things have changed. What was originally proposed didn't happen, and something new came in. So I believe this study is going to give us the data we need to make good decisions on what future development needs to look like north of the Sashball regional drain, because it will come through that pipe eventually. So I'm here in front of the board tonight to get approval to have Nowak and Frost complete this study for us so we have that data. And I think that it would take them approximately 60 days to get the information done. Is that pretty accurate, Jason? Yeah. So it is a long study. They're going to take their time, and I think it's good business. That way we have good data based on today's standards, not something that happened 16 years ago or the standards from 16 years ago. Because no matter what happens and what you do up north, we have to make sure we don't affect the folks on the south of the drain.
Go ahead, Sam.
No, go ahead.
I was going to just make a comment to just kind of summarize a little bit that anybody that develops something along the Sashball corridor that can connect to the Sashball drain, they can buy into capacity into that drain is what I think it's set up to be, right? If they don't retain on their own property, they have to buy into this.
I believe that's correct.
Into the drain, and that's why I guess we need to control the capacity of it. So any future developments, they can't just say, I'm not doing any water retention or detention, and
that's
put it all down there. So.
It's like a bathtub, okay? It's only going to hold so much water, so we have to manage that as best as possible. We don't want to say, no, you can, or say, yes, you can put in there, and then since it's our drain, we operate, it's owned and operated by the township, we don't want to put ourselves in a bad spot.
Go ahead, Sam.
Can you explain how the drain, how they collect at the northern side of 75, then it goes under 75, right? Then does it become exposed again in Lake Walden Village? That's where the park is, right?
Yes, it's all there's no pipe. The only pipe is underneath I-75. It's a 72-inch concrete pipe.
Okay, so I'm glad you're doing this study, because we're going to get development on the north side. Mm-hmm. My concern, just looking at, and I know what everybody's here. So the park across the street's been reduced down to like 7 acres where that drain is that correct? It's in the proximity of that drain? That's what I'm told, that drain crosses?
I'm gonna have to defer on that.
Huh?
I apologize.
It's okay, I was under the understanding that that drain came into that park.
The board should know that the park has never changed size since it was approved by the board. I believe you're right, it's around 7 to 8 acres right now. So that's what it is. The pipe actually comes in right approximately where the woodland is in the park. So that's where the pipe outlets right now into the Walden Village property.
Okay, so I'm glad you're doing this test because we've, that 7-acre park is an amenity that we're hoping that people are going to be able to benefit from. So knowing how much water is going to flood into that park is, something I would be interested in finding out.
Sure.
Because if that becomes a lower quality parkland or tree land, I'd like to know about it before that gets to the point where, if that was to dissipate, if we find out it's going to be saturated or it's going to be used more when that develops up there and we start putting impervious surface in and the water levels rise in that park, it can start killing the trees off and things like that, So the test would take that into consideration, the ramifications of downstream.
It will. That's the whole thing is the study or the proposal will tell us how it impacts, we'll have better data how flow from the north underneath this pipe will impact the whole system.
Okay, because I know it's once it gets open, it's kind of right there. So whether that fills up and then spills out and through under our parking lot and, the way that you were describing it. So just some of because it's going into the park that we're just creating, that I want to make, because that's a 72-inch pipe. So that, 6-foot diameter pipes designed to carry a lot of water, and that water needs a lot of places to go if we start over gathering. So I think that even consideration in the report going forward, the not being able to oversaturate the park in that development needs to be considered when we figure out how many people can connect to it and that are on the other side that aren't thinking about the ramifications of what's happening in Lake Walden Village from the north. So I just want to make sure that that's really being calculated. And then it reduces to a 42-inch drain. So there's going to be a buildup in a 100-year flood situation or 10-year, whatever, because we're reducing it. So it must stay and try to permeate into the ground, and just like a rain garden would or whatever, they're reducing it as it's coming open to the air possibly, or they would keep it 72. So that's what I'm assuming.
Good.
And if that's the only place it's doing it at, we want to be, make sure we're conscious of what's happening.
Yeah, Sam, you're right on. We're looking at the big picture. You have a bigger pipe here, a small one downstream, but that's okay. Typically, it's not like it's a full pipe and going into a small pipe, but you have drainage, you have saturation into the ground. And this is what part of the study is going to give us a good idea.
Yeah.
In a 100-year storm, which meets our standards, what scenario or how much water could be expected in that.
I just want to be assured that the deciduous trees don't die from oversaturation due to development north of 75 because we're dumping it all into our park. And that we've calculated that, so that doesn't happen, because that wouldn't happen for years to come, but we should be prepared in case it did. The only, the only other question I had is, is there a different, you're doing it during when the ground's frozen opposed to thawed, so, if doing a water test and saturation or when the ground's frozen, does that have any bearing on accurate readings of when the ground's not frozen? Because your timeline is going to be done by in the next 60 days or so before the ground thaws if we got a normal winter coming. You know what I mean? Does that make a difference? Or do we get a better reading waiting till it's thawed than we would doing it when it's frozen?
We have to refer to the engineers on that one if there's any benefit of that.
Well, I don't know if you're just doing paper calcs or if you're doing saturation. I don't know what the test consists of.
Yep. Good evening. I'm Jason Longhurst with Noack and Frouse. So to your point, so a couple of components we're looking at. One's flow monitoring of what's actually coming through the 72-inch. That's been initiated, put on pause for the winter. It's going to reinitiate in the spring, so we're going to get some measurable data to see what's coming through there currently. And then as far as looking at the infiltration or permeability into the soils, we would be looking at this more globally. We've got some soil maps, things like that have general characteristics of soils, but we're not going to be engaging a geotechnical engineer to go out and look at specific areas as part of this study. That would be something down the road if recommendations were made for improvements or the creation of different facilities in different areas. That would be a component of that. So there won't be any of that in-field testing done over the winter.
Would your test give us the data that I'm looking for as far as park saturation or water levels, or, you know, going from a 72 to a 42-inch pipe and that type of things we're kind of trying to, that I'm just want to make sure we got covered?
Yeah.
Is that part of the scope?
Part of our study is to look at the topography of the area that's contributing to that and then moving downstream. So, you know, the park area, is it flat? Does it have a bunch of slope on it where that may not even be an issue as the water is going to be moving downhill? So we'll be surveying our areas of that, you know, watershed to figure out how that's going to work, and then again making recommendations for potential improvements that could be done there. But I noted your concerns regarding the trees and the woodlands there.
Okay, thank you.
And I just want to add one thing, that the 72-inch pipe that goes underneath I-75, MDOT put that in when they built the expressway years ago. There's 72-inch pipes all the way. So I don't know if there's no rhyme or reason why it's 72-inch. It might, you know, our initial flow study shows there's like this much water going through it. Seems like an awfully big pipe for not a lot of water.
You say
So-
that now, but if you had to put in another pipe because it was too small, you regret not putting in a big one.
There had to have been, we believe there's a method to the madness, but again, that's why we're doing this,
Yeah, I thought
right?
about that, yeah.
You know, data, good, hard data of real world scenarios. But yeah, you're right, Paul. I mean, you know, make it smaller and then it'll be too big. We'll need 3 of those. But
It's interesting, how many pipes are there through the
I think they went all the
stretch?
way, probably all the way up.
I mean, are there 4 or 5 of them in the township, or
I think there's,
a few?
there might be one other one that's within the township, and then
Okay.
it's Springfield as you go up.
Yeah.
Because they put those in the, when did they build the 75, the 60s?
60,
So as they were
50s,
doing the expressway, bam, they were putting those in there, and you know what it was like back then? There was nothing out here.
right.
So that's another good reason why, you know, things change so much, you know, the dynamics of the parcels and everything like that. So we just want to make sure that we're
planning.
getting good data, accurate, up-to-date data.
That's all I got.
Appreciate it.
Anything else, Gary?
Yes.
I got a couple questions. I don't know if this would be Brian or for Mr. Carlisle. So the Sashbore Corridor Drainage Study from HRC talks about the area across the street, the undeveloped 21-acre parcel, which, am I correct, that is the parcel across the street? Just for clarification. Back then, it was master plan for research office. What is the difference in what were zoned, or master planned and zoned as now versus the research office, and the impact on the drain? Can somebody answer that for me? Or possibly the impact on the drain? I don't know, back then, what research office, was it gonna still be mostly undeveloped?
Which 21 acres is this?
Yeah,
Walden
it's,
Village across the street.
Wadham Village, 70 acres is.
He said yes.
Brian,
He's calling Brian.
would you like me to answer that?
Yes,
Yes,
Dick.
go ahead, Dick.
Yeah, the study identified 21 acres, which is now currently part of the Walden Village, as master plan for research office. Actually, the entire property at various times prior to that had been master planned for industrial office park or research office, or, you know, a variety of industrial uses, actually. But they calculated the drainage on the basis of the 21 acres of research office and the balance of it being single-family residential. And I think we think that the runoff coefficient that was eventually assigned to this property was more or less a blended runoff coefficient between the two. But obviously, I think if you would consider or think that it was all developed as an industrial office park, there were some very real possibilities that it might have happened, the runoff probably would have been much greater than the 0.55 that's been assigned to it. So that's basically, that was the assumption that HRC made at the time regarding how the property is going to be developed.
Good question.
And, at the time, I mean, probably a fair assumption. We know a lot more since then. So much, a lot more water has gone over the dam, so to speak, Walmart proposal, a whole variety of different things. I think that was the assumption that they made at the time.
So it also goes on to say that although the property is underdeveloped, it has the potential for providing detention to serve its own needs, providing a large enough basin to accommodate drainage north of 75. And then it further says in the study, it talks about, so I just want to make sure that I'm talking about the right thing. The 5 acre, is that the pond? How big is the,
So,
yeah, is that 5 acres?
approximately.
We're talking about the old Agigian Pond. Yeah, it's probably about 5 acres, I think.
Is that what we're considering for the runoff and for the storage, or that's something else?
It's all part of a system that goes all the way down. It's the first part of the regional drain system that travels down, further down Walden Center to the wetlands that are associated, at the sort of the south end of Walden Center Drive, flows into there. There's a whole series of devices down through there that ultimately ends up as Dave, you did correctly identify, it is still called Spring Lake. The golf course isn't, but the lake is still called Spring Lake. That eventually ends up in Spring Lake, and that's all part of the regional drainage system.
Okay. A couple more comments I wanted to make, though. That study does refer to a 10-year and a 100-year detention basin calculation. So we're going to pay for, if approved tonight, to do another study to give us another 100-year calculation when we received one and we paid for one already? Why do we think, I know the development has changed, but was that taken into consideration with the master plan in this study? We've already paid for this once. We have, I know the regulations with the county has changed to the 100-year, but we have a 10-year and we have a 100-year study right here. And that was from 1995. We're nowhere near, thankfully 100 years. So, and it says the potential for development of certain parcels north of Walden, any such development will require provision of on-site detention as there were no improvements made downstream within the Lake Walden Village project to accommodate such increased flows. So I'm referring back to I know it looks like that, it seems like this has all come about because of Walden Village. Since I've been here, we weren't talking about this prior to Walden Village. In the early stages of Walden Village, was there studies, reports, opinions, or something done about on-site detention for this problem? And it was planned early on, and this isn't something that's, no, it wasn't?
May I respond?
Go ahead, Dick.
What it was in that report, in that report is, I appreciate the fact that you've had an opportunity to read through that because it is important. But that report predated the establishment of the regional drain and the ordinance that was associated with that. And ended up happening is that if a property was included in the SAD, which this one was, and they agreed to pay the special assessment, they were not required. As long as they met their runoff coefficient, they were not required to provide on-site detention. So in this particular case, the property owners paid their special assessment of, I don't know, something close to $430,000 or something like that. And the current design meets the runoff coefficient. I think the answer to your question really is, yes, of course, the Walden Village project has raised this question, but this isn't unusual when a development project informs us about some information that we don't have regarding a much bigger picture, which in this case, this is what it is. And I think the combination of the fact that the drainage standards have changed, which could not have been anticipated when the regional drain was established, because at that time, it was based on the drainage standards at the time. And two, it's very unclear what is actually coming through that 72-inch. There is, lots of evidence, and that is not, it's mostly anecdotal and experiential data that indicates there's not very much coming through that 72-inch. But as Mr. Rocco indicates, you would think putting in a 72-inch drain, that means that it's going to carry a lot of water. But the other reason that I think we have to understand is that when the state built I-75, that predated any standards where stormwater management was really required. Those were the days when water was just simply piped up and sent on to somebody else. That's changed. And what has occurred since the regional drains established, there were drainage standards there, they've actually become more stringent. I think the reason for this is we want to make sure that the water that we regulate that is north of I-75 is not going to negatively impact not just Walden Village, but everything all the way downstream. And there's no way, I think, in 20 years ago that the engineers at the time, the township engineers, could have anticipated that the drainage standards were going to change to what they are now. And so I think that's all the more reason why it's a prudent decision on the part of the board to at least allow this study to be done, because that drainage system, that regional drain, is our drain. It is a public facility, and we have asked people to participate in an SAD or pay fees to connect to it in lieu of providing on-site detention. So it's just a matter of getting up to speed on current conditions.
I have one more, sorry.
Go ahead, Karen.
This one hopefully should be a little easier. It also talks about the size of the existing culvert under the road would need to be examined and modified. Additional storage could be achieved in the wetland of the north side of the maintenance road by raising the elevation of the road. Size of the existing culvert under the road will need to be examined and modified as necessary in light of the upstream contributory acreage and the storage requirement for the 55 acres of undeveloped land. And they talk about the 10-year storm. Did that ever take place? I
No.
wasn't here. Can anybody answer to that?
No, it did not.
So we never increased the culvert
No,
and raised the road?
no.
That wasn't considered when we looked at the development across the street. So
Which road?
Well, it wasn't, I guess, it wasn't that situation has existed, and it should have been addressed, a while ago, in all honesty, but it wasn't their responsibility to modify that, because unfortunately, that 42 inch has been extended all the way down to the pond. So part of this is going to provide, if indeed we need to, is to provide some potential solutions to that which could potentially happen upstream, before the 72 inch pipe, because that property is undeveloped right now, and we have some options in terms of trying to mitigate this situation, if it's a problem at all. And we don't even know if it's as significant a problem as a 72 inch pipe would indicate, because nobody's ever said there's a lot of water coming through this pipe.
But again, we have to, correct me if I'm wrong, look at the size of the pipe according to a possible 100-year storm, not what really we're achieving today. We have to look at that worst-case scenario, correct? So that's what we would have to possibly modify too. Okay. So really, our ordinance supersedes this now, is what you're saying, and this isn't really looked at or considered by, our engineers now? We don't really reflect on this study. I know it's old, but that's our basis. So you're saying really the ordinances sort of have taken place, township ordinance has sort of taken place for that? Is that correct? So this isn't something that's considered, looked at?
Are you asking, I'm sorry, of course it was, the entire thing, but our current engineers did not design the whole regional drain. We have consulted with those who did, but I think the mitigating factor is that drainage standards have changed, which at the time the original study was done, honestly, we could treat this as if the drainage standards have never changed, but if a problem occurs, then I think the feeling is that we haven't done our job. We haven't done our due diligence.
Exactly.
So this is really anticipating, this is really trying to anticipate what could be worst case scenario and exercise some options that we think we might have for upstream drainage to perhaps require additional mitigation if necessary.
Okay, that's all I have.
Anybody else? Paul, Matt, Sam?
No, I just, one question, the $35,000 budgeted for maintenance, what does that consist of?
That's based on our asset management plan that I had done in 2017, which is the recommendation to budget $35,000 a year to maintain the assets we have of the drain. So that's cleaning pipe, making sure the weirs are not knocked over, dredging, making sure the flow all the way through the drain itself is clear.
And you think we're gonna need that this year?
We did a lot of work last year and the year before, especially with the big project that went through the Fountains Golf Course, because that's part of it, that all the water, like if you play golf on the first tee box, number 1 and 10, that's ours. That's all part of the drainage system. So we did massive improvements along there because it was terrible. Nothing was flowing through there.
It was just, over the last couple of years, there was a couple spots that were pretty plugged up that you cleaned out and everything.
Correct.
Right? So,
It was really bad because unfortunately, when it was built, then it was left. And so we took care of business on there, and we did spend a lot of money on there, but moving forward, I think the 35,000 is probably going to be, I think we'll come in under. It depends. There's still some work to do, large work to do. That's what our asset management plan says that we should be budgeting for every year for.
basically,
maintenance.
I don't think they've really done a lot of maintenance up until this last couple of years, and that's why they budgeted some
Yeah.
money just to
That's
keep an eye on it to see how quick it's building up.
Yep.
But it was many years before they've
Well,
done anything. So.
They have it noted in the MAF that we can't use it because we're gonna use it for maintenance. I just wanna know what, if we could have, it says, otherwise, if you weren't gonna do maintenance this year, we could use it towards this report. I think Carrie brings up a lot of good points about that other report, which there's, but but my first concern is that the reason I would be in favor of it now is because we do have what is considered an amenity in a park space in a neighborhood that's being affected by the drain. So
Right.
although the impact of Walden Village to Spring Lake is what seems to be the more primary focus, you know. Now that we've finished, we have Lake Walden Village, I'm really concerned and hope that they're going to provide the information of the effects of upstream, and if we would then, if the findings would require us to change into on-site drainage north of 75 to make sure that it's not about just, this is bigger than the drain capacity.
Right.
It's also, it's also the staging areas down that we're identifying as important parcels. So that, for that reason, I as long as that's what we're going to also find out, I think that it's some, you know, that it's something that we
Definitely.
need to investigate just to protect ourselves, you know?
Future undeveloped property, you know, to buy into the drain or use the drain, it's gonna have to be regulated, obviously. That's, you know, the biggest thing is, what you don't wanna do is have them, just go on and plan to buy into, you know, the capacity to it, and then find out, hey, there's no capacity, but they already built their property.
Right, or it
without
backs up
retention or
across the
detention,
street,
so-
you know, that would be the concern, that it would stage where we don't want it to stage, you
Right.
know, that we weren't thinking about before that was developed. It was just big
But-
vast land that
yeah.
took the open water and eventually drained out, you know,
I just-
so.
I think it's smart to keep updating our studies and keep on top of everything, as opposed to just let
I
them
look
go
at
by,
it,
so.
I look at it like a water model. So we have a water model. You can run your disasters on paper or through a computer program or something like that instead of real life. So if you have good data and you plug all this data in, you can run scenarios. You know, you'll have data that can help you see the effects of the whole system. You'd rather do that on paper or with calculations and wait to see what happens in real life, because then you're in trouble.
Okay.
Go ahead, Paul.
I don't think it's been mentioned, but it's worth mentioning. These expenses all come out of the regional drain fund, correct?
Correct.
So we're not using general tax dollars for this.
Enterprise.
And ultimately, as more money is needed, there will be additional assessments against the participating parcels who will continue to fund this drain, not the rest of the taxpayers.
Great.
That's
That's correct.
Great point, Paul. Thank you.
Yep, good.
This
good
is an
point.
enterprise. The drain is an enterprise fund.
Yep.
That's better.
Yep. Just thought that was worth saying.
Any other comments? Any other comments
It's
from the
important
board?
to know who's paying for it.
Anybody in the public have a comment
Good, good. It's good.
in-house here? How about online? Anybody online have a comment?
Good questions.
No questions? If not, we'll bring it back to the board and see if we're ready to make a motion or not. Anybody?
I'll make a
Sam?
motion, I guess. I'll move to accept the proposal received from Nowak and Fraus of Pontiac, Michigan for professional services associated with the Sashpao Regional Drain investigation as outlined in the agreement in an amount not to exceed $58,288.40, and to direct the supervisor to sign the proposal as the authorized representative of the township and approve the 2023 budget amendment number 3 as follows.
Second?
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. Motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, number 2, we got Mr. Derek Smith up to talk about request to accept Deer Lake Beach erosion project bid.
Yeah, the Deer Lake Beach erosion project. This is something that's been in our capital improvement plan for quite a few years. This last year, when we got our ARPA funding, we included $100,000 of this project as part of the ARPA funds and left $40,000 in my capital improvement plan to cover the cost. We put the project out for bid, and we received 4 bidders. The low bid being VIL Construction out of Sterling Heights, Michigan, at $111,700. And the highest bidder coming in at $349,200. So if we can, this is pretty typical. A lot of the bids that we're putting out today is you get a couple of them. I think the bottom 3 are all relatively in the same price range, and then you've got a company that's just kind of throwing money against the wall, and if we're silly enough to pay it, they're willing to do the work. So I'm excited to get this project done, though. Again, this is something that we've been working on for several years. This is the second time that we've kind of gone back and re-engineered this project. I actually met with a company at the beach with Nowak and Frous to kind of go over what would be more beneficial from a plan perspective. The pilot groins that we have going in and the native plantings, along with some diversion methods that we're putting to the inlet that goes under Clarkson Road to the other side of the road, I think are all good measures. And hopefully we can start to restore this beach and stop the erosion process. As we all know, we've probably lost 30 to 40 foot of beach over the last 20 to 30 years with the sand that flows under the road. So this isn't going to restore the beach in our lifetime, but it will certainly slow down the process and start to collect a lot of this material that goes under the road and hopefully capture it on our beach side. Like I said, we probably won't see the benefits of that, but generations to come probably will. So, but this is something that is in dire need of being done. And like I said, we've discussed it at this table on several occasions. This is just the formality of getting this approved. And what we want to get this contractor to work as soon as we can in the spring so the beach is open on its normal time frame.
Any questions by the board?
Can you just touch on how this is being funded?
I just did.
The
Yeah.
ARPA funds?
Yep, we have $100,000 in
okay.
ARPA funds out of the $3 million that the township is receiving. $100,000 of it was appropriated for this project. $40,000 of it was left. We had $140 in our capital improvement budget for this project originally. We left the $40,000 in there and kind of divided the 100 out through ARPA. So I did put a $10,000 contingency in here just in case we run into any roadblocks along the way. But the engineering cost and with that contingency, we're still well under budget for the project. So I was pretty excited and happy to see the numbers come in. Yep.
Great.
We definitely know that if you don't do anything, it just keeps going under the road over to the other side. If you ever had a chance to go down there and see that, it's amazing how much beach is on the other side of the road. So, go ahead, Paul.
So, yeah, I spent a lot of time at that beach in the early 70s, and we used to swim underneath the road, and as soon as you got out to the other side, you just sit there and be looking at the whole other lake over there. Well, now you got to keep swimming for about 50 yards before you get out of the cattails.
Yeah, there's a really nice beach on the other side of the road.
It's unbelievable.
It is really unbelievable when you look at it. And I know, again, maybe not in our time, but if you go farther west down Clarkson Road, at some point, we're going to have some road issues with Clarkson Road because that lake is really digging into the road bed on that side as well. So it's, if you go farther west of the beach.
White Lake Road?
Yeah, sorry, but it's really starting to dig into that shoreline there, but that's not part of the property, so.
Any other comments by the board? Any comments or questions from the audience? Would you like to make a comment online? Anyone? If not, we'll bring it back to the board and see if we're ready to make a motion or not.
I'll do it. Move to accept the 2023 Deer Lake Beach erosion bid, VIL Construction of Sterling Heights, Michigan, for a base price of $111,700 and an additional contingency of $10,000 for a total price not to exceed $121,700, and authorize the township supervisor to sign the contract for services.
I'll
Second.
second. Go ahead.
Motion been made and seconded by Carrie, right? And so all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Derek. Up next is Mr. Moran's request to appoint board and committee members for the Construction Board of Appeals.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Dave Moran, Building Director, Building Official on behalf of the Township. I'm here to present applicants for the appointment for the Construction Board of Appeals. Under the Construction Code Act here in Michigan, known as Public Act 230, 1972, it requires the Charter Township of Independence as a governmental subdivision to provide a Construction Board of Appeals. This Construction Board of Appeals hears appeals for refusals by the Building Department to issue permits or appeals from any other decisions relating to building and/or construction within the jurisdiction of the township. The board may also grant a variance for the specific terms of the state's construction code if a literal application resulted in an exceptional practical difficulty to the applicant, and only if a hearing before the Board of Appeals is requested in writing and submitted on a form provided by the building department. The Construction Board of Appeals consists of 5 members for a 2-year term appointed by the township supervisor and confirmed by the township board. The Public Act 230 requires that a member be qualified by experience or training to perform the duties of this board. More specifically, the members must have experience in construction and working knowledge of the state construction code. 1 member shall serve as chairperson, who shall preside over the meetings and hearings. Another member shall serve as secretary to take minutes of the proceedings of the Construction Board of Appeals as public record of all determination. I, as the building official, would represent as a liaison for the township. Construction Board of Appeals meets as needed. Getting to that point, it hasn't been needed for, as far as my understanding, for over 20 years. This is a obligation under Public Act 230 to provide that option to our constituents. There was a Construction Board of Appeals that was in place a number of years ago. I don't know the history of that either. I'm just here to try to get the appointments in place so that we can provide that option for our constituents. So with that being stated, some of the supporting documents that were provided was through our own code, Chapter 10 in the Buildings and Building Regulations, Article 2 of the Construction Code, Division 2 is the requirements under the Construction Board of Appeals. So with all the applicants that were submitted, I chose 5 people and had discussions with each one of them to be able to present that to the board this evening. Those individuals are William Scarborough, Wendell Hutchinson Jr., Joseph Sucher, Sam Morocco, and Dick Moskovic. And if there's any questions, I'd be more than happy to try to answer them.
Carrie?
I think the only question I have, and I don't know if you're able to do it or not, with it being a 2-year term, usually our appointments are staggered. So knowing all of them are a 2-year term, then they're all gone, and then we're having to reappoint all of them. Is there anywhere that at some point in time we can try to stagger them so that
There's no guidelines on how we even appoint them. I mean,
okay.
we can appoint the entire board in a staggered, increment of months. Again, there's no.
So you're just recommending the 2-year?
Yeah,
Okay.
for now, and
Okay.
in that way, we can stagger them as we go through this process. That's for us to figure out. I'm trying to comply with the requirements of the Public Act 230. Hasn't been a big need in this township for, any questionable decisions up to this point, so.
Is it possible to change 2 of them to a 3-year term for the first term, and then change it to 2-year terms after that?
It's actually in our ordinance, the 2-year term is
Okay.
specific to that, so.
Okay.
What's the calendar year? What's the term? 2 years from their appointment?
It ends
From
March
the
14th.
date of the
2025.
appointment.
I mean, say in the MAIF, it says the term ending March 14th,
Okay.
2025.
But 2 years would be from, I would think, from tonight.
Well,
The appointment would be this evening.
if it was from this evening, I put that in the MAIF because I figured their approval tonight for the appointment would still have to swear them in at a later date. So that's why I picked the March 15th date
Okay,
for
because
this year. And
officially,
then 2 years from that day would be March 14th, 2025.
they're officially appointed as of this evening.
Okay,
They just
so-
can't vote and take action, actually, until they're sworn
Till
in.
they're sworn in.
We'll
Okay.
just change
Yeah.
that date.
Yeah, we can just change it in the
We can change
motion.
the date.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments by the board?
No, I'm gonna recuse myself, I guess, since I'm one of the people that are being recommended for this position.
I don't know if that's necessary or not. I don't think
It's
we're,
not a paid
We accept
position.
that.
yeah, it's not a
Okay,
paid
don't need
position,
to.
so.
Appreciate it.
Okay.
We decline.
All right, then.
Thank you.
I guess, I don't have any problem with you voting for yourself, so.
Yeah, me neither.
All right, anybody, any comments or questions from the public? Online, anybody? See nothing, we'll bring it back to the board, see if we,
I'll
ready for a
move to
motion.
appoint Wendell Hutchinson, Sam Morocco, Dick Moskovic, William Scarborough, Joseph Sucher as regular members of the Construction Board of Appeals with terms ending January 24th, 2023.
Second?
Okay, motion's been made and seconded, all those in favor say aye. All those opposed, nay? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you.
Item number 4 on the agenda tonight is a request to reappoint board and committee members to the Zoning Board of Appeals. Mr. Aliaga is MAF, but you're going to handle this, Brian?
Yes, I
Right.
will. Good evening again. Mr. Epping, who is our Zoning Board of Appeals Chairman, and Mr. Auger, who's a long-standing member of the Zoning Board of Appeals, their terms were up at the end of the year, and they both requested to be reappointed. Both are very good board members, and Mr. Aliaga has recommended that they both be reappointed. As an we've had the alternate position's been vacant for quite a while. It seems like people start as an alternate and then they get bumped up when there's a vacancy. That's typically how it's been done and how we like to do it, because that way they have some experience on the zoning board. So we've chosen through all the applications Mr. Bill Scarborough to be our Zoning Board of Appeals alternate. From time to time, we have an absent, member, so this way we can call the alternate and make sure that we have a quorum or at least a full board to make it fair for the petitioners.
I'm just going to make one comment real quick. I hope we can learn to spell Mr. Epic's name correctly, which it's misspelled in the MAF, so I just want to make sure we correct that as part of any motion that's being made. So,
Corrected in the minutes.
Right.
Maybe, yes.
any comments or questions by the board? Anyone? Any comments or questions from people in the public? Online? Well, we'll bring it back to the board. Are we ready to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to reappoint Jim Epping and Alan Alger as regular members and Bill Scarborough as an alternate member on the Zoning Board of Appeals with terms ending December 31st, 2025.
I'll support. Motion's been made and supported. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion passes. Thank you. And next is request to appoint Citizen Advisory Council members for the DDA Development Authority. Mr. Ottman.
As you'll recall, the township board reactivated the Independence Township DDA, our Downtown Development Authority, and they approved 8 DDA members on December 20th. Because of some requirements in the law, the supervisor now has to create what's called a Citizens Advisory Council, and it must be at least 9 members. And there are some requirements as to why that's needed. There is more than 100 residents in the district, and all these residents that are on the MAF tonight do live in the district. They have to by law, and the Citizen Advisory Council is critical in the approval of the DDA plan. So, because they have to make a recommendation to the DDA board on the adoption. And essentially, after the plan's over, they still can meet and they can act as an advisor to the board. There's 9 members currently listed, but a 10th came in late, so you just have to appoint at least 9, so you could appoint all 10. There's nothing wrong with that. The person's name is Ms. Janine Keller, so she came in late, but it's okay to have 10 members on the Citizen Advisory Council if you so choose.
Yeah. Yeah. I just want to make a point. The township, put a lot of effort into finding people. They sent out a letter. There was phone calls made. Janine, I talked to her personally too. I think she just checked the wrong box inadvertently, and by the time we could get her to react, the deadline had passed to modify her application. I think it would only be fair, and she was one of the people that came out to step up, that we add her to the list, and make it a 10. Everyone that wanted to participate, with her included, would be everyone that we're recommending tonight.
Just wanted to thank Sam for his work on trying to tie all this up, and there were some loose ends at the end, and so just wanted to thank him for
Yeah, no problem.
getting this to the,
There's some good
Point
names
for us
of
tonight.
long-term residents, on this list, so I think it's a good list, so.
Yeah, and I think what their professions are too.
Yeah, that was very
it's
interesting to
gonna
see the
be
cross-section.
And with the DDA board we have, it's gonna be a great think tank of how to make Dixie Highway and White Lake better, So,
This isn't a criticism, I just want to make a comment. I guess, to me, it'd been nice if we could see a map, just, I don't need to know where each person lives, but just kind of see where the members are scattered along the corridor, just to see if it, if they're all like from clustered in one spot, then.
well, the majority of them are, I would say, if I had, are from the Parks of Stonewood, because it is one of the bigger
Bigger
developments there. They also front both streets of the district, which is good. And then there's some other participants that are further down Dixie Highway. One at the behind Kroger there.
In the apartments,
I don't know the
yeah.
name of that complex, but somebody that's been there for like 20 years.
Lancaster Lake.
Lancaster Lakes, another one in the condo complex on Dixie Highway.
Northcrest.
So
Yeah.
Oh, excellent.
as diverse as we could, with where there was actually residents on the district, certainly, and the same with the DDA board. It's people represented on every one of the 3 roads. So we got lucky on.
Yeah, that was good on the DDA board. I like that, because you could, they pretty much you could tell just from the businesses that, where
Right.
they're located too, so that's good. I just, I guess I think it would just give more confidence to, we got a good cross-section of people on the board as well, so.
Yeah, the Facebook page for Parks of Stonewood came out big to help promote that. Daisha Nemode was instrumental in posting our letter out to the people as a reminder, and everyone's like, oh yeah, I did get it, but I didn't read it, and then got the buzz going, and then we got the influx of interest, so it worked out really good.
Very good. Paul?
I just second what Carrie indicated. I know Sam really put in a lot of work with Jose to pull this thing together, and great job.
Dick put a lot of pressure on us, and a lot of deadlines, so.
that's good, he's kept us in line, we needed it.
Yeah.
Quietly.
Yeah. So.
Any more comments from the board? Questions at all? Any comments or questions from the audience? Online?
Mr. Ritchie, could I just make one quick comment?
Sure.
Having the CAC, even, with additional members, I think is a potential real asset. There's a lot of DDAs have subcommittees working on specific projects or specific ideas, and these are people that you can add to subcommittees, to do a lot of work. So I think making this more of a grassroots effort is really encouraging.
Very good. I'm very encouraged. Like I said, I think it's the most interest we've had on Dixie Highway in quite a while, so I think it's very good. Anybody ready to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to appoint Philip Bertolini, Tanya Carson, Eric Gascho, Tara Hansen, Julie Gascho, Kristen Poplawski, Wesley Brooks, Don Doolin, Ian Gale, and Janine Keller to the CAC Citizens Advisory Council of the Downtown Development Authority DDA Board.
Support.
Motion's been made and supported. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Brian.
Yeah, thank you.
That was the last item on the agenda. for regular business. So now we have no closed session or budget session, so go to item N, which is communications. For your reading enjoyment, you can look up through the Township Growth Master Plan, Open Space Preservation Workshop letter. Report from the Oakland County Sheriff's Department for their monthly report of December 2022. The Information Technology Oversight Committee meeting minutes for November 29th. The Safety Path Advisory Committee minutes for October 12th, 2022. And the communications from the Michigan Liquor Control Commission on the transfer of ownership of the Class C license for Fairy Tale Fun Place in Clarkston. And there's communication from the Michigan Liquor Control on the conditional license for M&D Cherry Hill LLC.
Outstanding.
That's it? Got any board member comments in closing? Anyone? Not see anything? Get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
This is made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Well, we are adjourned. Thank you.
All right.
Thanks, Rob.